Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid. Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and it is time for our Gameweek 24 episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid, the transfer series where we look at all kinds of moves that are good and bad as well. Just giving my opinions, guys. If you do enjoy this one, please do leave a like, please do subscribe. Before we go any further, let's have a look at the rules of the video. So buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players you might be thinking of removing but I think you should keep them. And avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now but I think there are potential traps that should be avoided. I'm getting quicker and quicker at that little intro every time. Let's do some buys, guys, 2 in each category. Okay, so our first buy is going to be João Felix. He's a player who I've been really admiring in the short period of time I've been able to watch him for Chelsea. Obviously, he's only really played a game and a half, just over that, for Chelsea due to that red card incident in his debut, which I know a lot of us would have been laughing at that moment. But I have to say, who's laughing now? Because Felix put in a phenomenal performance against West Ham and really was dictating so much of what Chelsea were doing in that game. He was getting plenty of opportunities in the box to score and shoot and also creating chances for his teammates. So you can see in his limited minutes, I think he's played around 140 minutes in the Premier League so far, 1.38 expected goals and 0.5 expected assists during that period is very nice indeed. And I think that is something that we can be very impressed by. The fixtures coming up look pretty good. We've got Southampton at home, Spurs away, who obviously conceded 4 goals to Leicester just a couple of days ago. Leeds at home and then Leicester away in 27. So we've got some nice fixtures for Chelsea and for Felix. He's a 7.5 million forward with some good underlying numbers. He's an exciting player, an unknown quantity, and a bit of a differential as well. So if you guys own some certain strikers that you're not too happy with, you know, if you've got a Mitrovic who you're maybe not so happy with at the moment, if you've got Martial, someone like that, Weghorst, I don't know what kind of forwards you have, but if you have a forward you're not happy with and you're already tripled up on Arsenal, so maybe Nketiah is not an option for you, then João Felix is definitely a player I'll be looking at buying. My next buy is going to be James Tarkowski. So this one you could say sounds a little bit more boring, but I think it's actually quite exciting. We are at the dawn of the Sean Dyche defensive Everton team, and this is going to benefit the Everton defenders. And we've got here, because of Everton's performances so far in the season, a defender who has dropped price dramatically all the way down to 4.2 million. So a pretty good bargain player to have. And when we're looking at Game Week 25 in particular, we want to be able to cover our first 11 because, you know, it's going to be difficult to field a full 11 if you're not using a chip in 25. So we're going to have to depend on some of our cheaper players. And bringing in these cheaper players like Tarkowski, like maybe Max Kilman, who I almost put as the buy in this video, but I decided in the end to go for Tarkowski. I like it. I like it a lot. And we've got a player here who does have a little bit of attacking threat as well. So you never know, you could get lucky with the odd goal or, you know, flick on, knock on for another teammate in the box in a set piece scenario. The fixtures either side are pretty good of Game Week 25. We've got Leeds at home. We've got Nottingham Forest away in 26, a team that doesn't typically score too many goals, even though they are a little bit improved defensively. And obviously we've got that double game week in 25 as well in a fixture against Aston Villa and a fixture against Arsenal, who Everton have already kept a clean sheet against not so long ago. So overall, for a player who is this cheap, who has a double game week in 25, this to me looks reasonably good. I think he would definitely be very high on my priority list if I had players like Ben Mee, if I had Botman, if I had Fabian Schär, maybe if you have Luke Shaw. These kind of players, I would be looking at moving them out for a Tarkowski before Game Week 25. There is scope to do it in 24. You know, if you're not happy with Newcastle defenders against Liverpool, for example, I think there is scope to go 1 week early and try an Everton defender against Leeds instead. I think that could actually work out pretty nicely. So definitely one to consider, definitely on the radar, if not for this week, but for next week too. On to some sells. I think I'm going to put Bruyne as a sell. I think we have to start putting him in this category because it's just not working out, isn't it? Is it? And I feel like with certain players, you know, even though they have this amazing reputation historically, you just have to give up at a certain point. And now that double game week is in the past for Man City. I know technically, as I record this video, the Man City Arsenal game hasn't gone ahead yet. But if we're looking at Game Week 24 transfers, You know, De Bruyne, you know, he doesn't have any more double game weeks in the immediate future. Probably get one it's in the not so distant future, but we'll have another blank for Man City before we get a double for them. So look, it's difficult. Nottingham Forest away, I don't think is an amazing fixture. They've really stepped up defensively since the World Cup. We've got Bournemouth away in 25, which is a decent fixture, but in and around this kind of time, we are going to probably see a little bit of rotation just because of the Champions League games, which maybe Man City are going to look to prioritise this season, possibly with everything that's going on in the Premier League for them, and, you know, the Champions League still eluding them. So, look, it's going to be rotation. We've got that Newcastle fixture in 26. We know we're going to have a blank for Man City before they have a double. So, is it time to actually move on De Bruyne? Now, if you asked me in Game Week 25, I would say De Bruyne out, Salah in for Salah's double game week. That looks like a move that could possibly pay off. But really, it's difficult to suggest midfielders right for Game Week 24. I don't think you have to make a transfer in Game Week 24 necessarily. But what I would say is that De Bruyne is just not providing value for money. His underlying numbers are kind of weaker than a lot of the players who are much cheaper than him. So even if you could go for, you know, like a James Maddison, for example, or Saka, if you haven't got him already, I would really strongly consider making these kind of moves. But I think De Bruyne, at a certain point, we've got to say it's time to go. By the way, De Bruyne, last time he scored a goal in the Premier League, October. Yes, guys, October. There we go. Sell De Bruyne. Fabian Schär is also going to be a sell. I put Botman in the same category. So going back to what I was kind of saying about Tarkowski, possibly Kilman as well, I would be thinking about removing these Newcastle defenders 1 week early. We know they're going to blank in 25. 24, it's not exactly a great fixture. Liverpool don't do well defensively, but they do create a lot of chances. So you can imagine that Newcastle would concede that just one annoying goal against Liverpool, and, you know, suddenly you've lost your clean sheets. And then we've got a blank in 25. Man City away in Game Week 26. Newcastle are just not kind of the team you want to be too heavily invested in over the next three. Kieran Trippier, obviously, you're probably going to want to hold on to him for that long term, but for right this second, I do feel like the likes of Schär, the likes of Botman, those Newcastle defenders, maybe even Newcastle goalkeepers, maybe even Nick Pope, you could even look at potentially moving him on. If not this week, next week, because there's only limited amount of spaces you're going to have on your bench, to be fair, that you can kind of bench those Newcastle players. And you're probably going to want to prioritise your bench slots for Trippier, Rashford, Luke Shaw, maybe some Brighton players that you might have in your team still. Those are going to be the kind of players to go on your bench at the moment. So, therefore, there's no place for other Newcastle players, really. So, yeah, got to be sold, I think. Got to be sold. If not now, by Game Week 25. But I would consider doing it 1 week early. So, Nketiah, I can't believe I'm having to put him in keep, but he's actually one of the most sold players this game week, and I think that might be because people are so interested in Tony because he scored against Arsenal. Maybe a bit knee-jerk. People who are, you know, looking at João Felix, obviously, because that is a very exciting pick, and they're sacrificing Nketiah in order to do that. I think this is quite possibly the worst sell ever. Do not sell Nketiah. I can't stress this enough. Nketiah has actually got the highest predicted points of any player in FPL over the next 4 game weeks, and you can kind of see why. We've got Game Week 25, which is a double game week for him. We've got Aston Villa, who have conceded 7 goals in the last 2. We've got Bournemouth in 26, who are kind of one of the weakest defences in the league at the moment. That game is at home. We've got Fulham away there as well in 27. Now, Fulham, over the course of the season, have been one of the weaker defences. Have improved slightly recently, but you would still back Arsenal in all of these fixtures, even though you might say Arsenal have been struggling a little bit recently. You would still back them in all of these fixtures, really, wouldn't you? So, overall, you can't sell Nketiah. You can't. Even if you think that Felix is going to do really well, even if you feel like Tony is going to do really well, even though he blanks in 25, I just feel like you can't sell him. Like, the numbers are good. He's actually slightly underperforming. He's got amazing fixtures. He is Arsenal's best. He's got the best attacking numbers at Arsenal right now. An absolute must-keep for now. Now, we may have to remove him eventually. Gabriel Jesus is probably going to be starting, kind of being reintroduced into the team, maybe Game Week 26 at the earliest. Game Week 27 maybe. Game Week 28 is probably more likely. But we are going to see, Jesus is going to be coming back eventually. But for now, Nketiah, you've got to keep him. You've got to keep him, surely. I'm actually going to put Fernandez in keep as well. I know people are trying to sell him because of this Game Week 25 blank, and I do understand that, but I think I would wait one more week. And yes, Fernandez blanked in Game Week 23. He blanked in the second game in 22 against Leeds, so I guess technically blanked twice against Leeds. But what I've seen from these games is that he looks amazing. You know, he has blanked, but he's looked so good. His numbers are looking good as well. So it's kind of one of those situations where I think because he has looked so good and has been quite unfortunate not to get more attacking returns, it usually implies that attacking returns are on their way. So in 25, I think, yeah, at that point, we probably all going to be thinking about selling Fernandez if we still own him. But if you've ridden this far, if you've ridden Game Week 23 and kept Fernandez, I would keep him for one more week versus Leicester in 24. Numbers are too good. His performances are too good. I think you just got to give him one more roll of the dice before getting rid of him in Game Week 25. And hey, the penalties do help as well, don't they? On to some avoids. This is where things get controversial indeed. Tony is going to be the first avoid. He is a super popular transfer in this week. A hell of a lot of people looking at the numbers are selling Nketiah and getting in Tony. And it's a difficult one because if you're free hitting in Game Week 25, I actually quite like Tony. I think actually Tony is quite a good transfer if you're free hitting in Game Week 25. So this is where it becomes difficult as a content creator because I have to make content for the majority, and the majority will not be free hitting in 25. But yeah, Crystal Palace is a good fixture. Fulham at home is a good fixture. We've got a double in 27. That looks pretty good in the hood. But that Game Week 25 is going to be a real banana skin, and I'm not convinced that Tony can make up for the fact that you might have to transfer him out and then in again, or risk going with 10 or 9 or 8 players in Game Week 25 if we've got all of these other players, particularly if you're removing a player who plays in 25 for a player who doesn't play in 25, you're going to find yourself really out of players. So you're going to force yourself into transfers. You're possibly going to force yourself into hits. Maybe if you consider each transfer to be worth 4 points, you need really Tony to score at 8 points more than your current forward in Game Week 24. So, you know, if they are, you know, you're placing a player you're expecting to blank, get 2 points, you need Tony to score 10 points in Game Week 24 for this to pay off. Now, is that going to happen? Possibly. But it's not super likely. You wouldn't bet on it. You would say the likeliness of that happening is, you know, less than 50%, right? So therefore, objectively, when we're looking at probabilities, which is all we can really do when making transfers, it's probably a bad transfer. So therefore, I'm going to say that Tony is going to be an avoid, particularly if you're selling Nketiah for Tony. If you're free hitting in 25, I actually think Tony becomes a possible buy. So it's one of those situations where it's quite strange. But all in all, yeah, not feeling this one. I would just wait Game Week 24, wait Game Week 25. By the time Game Week 26, 27 comes around, yes, we're going to be talking about Tony. We're going to think about bringing him in. But right now, for Game Week 24, if you're not free hitting in Game Week 25, I would not be buying Tony. And I've gone for another controversial one. Mahrez avoid. Yeah, so, okay. First of all, guys, I do just want to nip this in the bud. It would be very easy for me to sit here every week and say, oh, avoid Cancelo. Because he is transferred to Bayern Munich. Avoid Gabriel Jesus because he's injured. Avoid Kante because he's injured. It'll be so easy for me to sit here and say that. What I like to do in the avoid section, just to create some conversation, is to talk about some players who are super popular transfers in and kind of try and give the other side of the story. So it's not necessarily me saying this player is terrible, this player is never going to do well. You know, that's not the situation. In fact, the situation with Mahrez is that I do consider him a high risk, high reward player, and there is a chance that Mahrez does really well in Game Week 24. What I think is more likely, and the reason why I'm putting him in the avoid section, is that I think he is going to be rested in Game Week 24. I think he's going to play the second fixture in Game Week 23 against Arsenal. So those of you guys who have already got Mahrez for Game Week 23, I think you guys are absolutely in the money. You guys would have heard me last week hyping up Mahrez a lot. He was a good pick in Game Week 23, but moving forward, I think you are playing with fire. You are playing with fire, picking at Mahrez in a game that is, you know, just before the Champions League game, directly after Mahrez is pretty much playing, you know, starting every single game. There's going to be a rest in and around here somewhere. I think the rest probably comes in Game Week 24, possibly even Game Week 25, if not, and that causes some more problems. So that's, you know, another issue. So Game week 25 against Bournemouth, you know, say that Mahrez does play against Forest, you know, maybe gets a return in that one, but then you don't have him for game week 25. Game week 25 is going to be difficult because we're going to be struggling for players. We need reliable players in game week 25. We really do, because it's a game week where we're going to be so limited. We're going to be so limited. So Mahrez is definitely, well, I say definitely, you never know with Pep Guardiola. He's probably going to get a rest in game week 24 or game week 25, possibly even both. And therefore, it's going to be a difficult player to own, a very difficult player to own at the time. I still think he's a very good player. I think he's a great pick for game week 23, and I think those of you guys who bought him in 23, I think you'll do well against Arsenal. I think you'll get the points, but those of you guys who are a little bit later on Mahrez, I think the window of opportunity has closed here, and you're going to have to wait for a future window of opportunity for Mahrez, because I don't think it is now. Controversial, I know. Let me know what you think in the chat. Do you think Mahrez is worth the risk right now? You know, by the way, he's not going to be typically on penalties going forward. It was kind of because of Haaland's kind of minor injury that he had in that game, which meant Mahrez took the penalty. So look, I think Mahrez is not going to be on penalties long term, just in case you think that is a factor. But, you know, that's just my personal opinion on that one. But, yeah, look, this is the lay of the land. I'll be very interested to hear what you guys think about Mahrez. All right, guys, in conclusion, I would say that game week 24 is a week where you don't have to make transfers if you don't want to. I think a lot of us are going to be rolling. I'm probably going to be rolling my transfer myself. But if you are making transfers, it's probably a good idea to be thinking about game week 25. So removing those players who are blanking in 25, replacing them with players who do have a game in 25. And then at least, even though you are maybe going slightly early on these transfers, at least you know you are building towards covering yourself in game week 25. You're building towards something. And I think the very fact that so many of the most popular transfers this week are players who are blanking in game week 25, I think those of you guys who are a little bit more patient, who are planners, you know, planning for game week 25 blanks, and are able to save your free hit for future game weeks in the future, where there's going to be even more chaotic blank game weeks, by the way, I think you guys are going to really see the benefits of that. So look, I think you're going to do well. I would say that you guys should be very happy if you are planning for game week 25, and I keep trying to do that. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for the FPL content today. If you do enjoy this one, please do leave a like, please do subscribe, and before we finish, just a quick word from the sponsor of today's video. Before you go, a quick shout out to my mates over at Squarespace who have kindly sponsored this video. Squarespace is a powerful and beautiful online platform that you can use to easily create your own website. It's a great way to create an online community without needing any coding experience, and fully integrated extensions can help you with those annoying things like inventory management, bookkeeping, tax, and international shipping. Connect with your audience and generate revenue through gated, members-only content, manage your members, and send email communications and leverage audience insights all in one easy-to-use platform. There's never been a better time to step up your side hustle. If this sounds like it's for you, then go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/FPL Mate to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.